The group text arrived December 30th. Mandatory family meeting tomorrow. New Year's Eve at the estate. 6 p.m. Major announcements about family properties. Everyone must attend. The estate. My compound. At 33, I was a commercial real estate developer. My firm, Morrison Development Group, owned properties across 3 states valued at $47 million. My personal holdings, 12 properties worth $22 million. My family thought I was a real estate agent who sold condos. The compound they called the estate was 3 adjacent properties I'd purchased over 5 years. A main house, guest house and carriage house on 8 acres outside Boston. Total purchase, $6.8 million. Current value, $9.2 million. My parents lived in the main house. My sister Charlotte and her husband in the guest house. My brother Eric was renovating the carriage house. All rent-free. All thinking the properties belonged to the family. None knew I owned everything. I texted back, "What announcements?" Charlotte replied, "You'll see. Exciting. We're finally organizing everything properly." I logged into the county property database. All 3 properties. Morrison Holdings LLC. Sole member. Isabel Morrison. Main house. 5 years ago $3.2 million. Guest house. 3 years ago $2.1 million. Carriage house. 2 years ago $1.5 million. Renovations. $1.8 million. All funded by me. All owned by me. December 31st arrived. I drove from my downtown penthouse to the compound. The driveway was packed. My parents' Lexus, Charlotte's Mercedes, Eric's Range Rover, extended family cars. At least 30 people. Inside, elaborate setup. Catering. Champagne. My entire extended family. Isabel. Mom kissed my cheek. Perfect timing. We're starting the presentation. Dad stood at my custom marble dining table with a laptop and projector. Morrison Family Estate Plan, a new chapter. Everyone settled. Champagne poured. Dad cleared his throat. "Family, thank you for being here. What we're announcing tonight will shape the Morrison legacy for generations." Next slide, aerial photo of the compound. The Morrison estate has been our family home for 5 years. 3 properties on 8 acres. Tonight we're properly organizing ownership. Next slide, property distribution plan. My stomach tightened. Charlotte and David will take full ownership of the guest house. They've lived there 3 years. Time to make it official. Charlotte beamed. Eric will take the carriage house. He's invested significant time in renovations. That property is his. Eric nodded. Your mother and I retain the main house. The largest property for the family patriarch. Applause. But, Mom stood, Isabel, we know you're busy with your city real estate job. You're independent. So you don't need property here. Charlotte agreed to let you use her guest room when you visit. Silence. Everyone watching. The guest room, I repeated. Perfect. Charlotte said. You're hardly here anyway. The properties go to family who need them. Eric has kids. David and I want babies. You're single in some tiny apartment. Not tiny. A 3,000 square foot penthouse I'd purchased for $2.4 million. We've drafted ownership transfer documents, Dad continued, showing legal paperwork. We'll file with the county next week. Who's transferring ownership? I asked. The estate. The family holdings. Who currently owns the estate? The family does. These properties have been Morrison properties for years. Specifically, whose name is on the deeds? Isabel, don't be difficult, Mom said. This is a family decision. We've all agreed. You've agreed to distribute properties you don't own. Charlotte laughed nervously. What? Of course we own them. We live here. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling my attorney. Richard? It's Isabel Morrison. I need you at my compound immediately. My family is attempting to transfer my properties without authorization. 20 minutes, Richard Brennan said. Partner at Boston's top property law firm. My retainer. $75,000 annually. This is ridiculous, Dad said. We're not wasting New Year's Eve with lawyers. Then you won't mind waiting 20 minutes for Richard to confirm the ownership structure. Mom's face reddened. Your attitude is incredibly selfish. We're organizing the estate and you're causing drama. Aunt Marie spoke up. Gerald, did you check the property records? Marie, don't start, Mom snapped. Whose name is actually on the deeds? The family's. Morrison Properties. The next 20 minutes were tense. Charlotte discussed paint colors for her guest house. Eric measured the dining room for his furniture. Planning their lives in my properties. At 6:42 p.m. Richard Brennan arrived. Senior partner, expensive suit, leather briefcase. Good evening. I'm Richard Brennan, Ms. Morrison's attorney. I understand there's confusion about property ownership. No confusion, Dad said. Family properties. We're reorganizing among family. Do you have documentation? Property deeds. We live here. That's proof enough. Actually, Richard opened his briefcase. Let me show you what county records indicate. He spread documents across my table. Hold up. These are the property deeds for all 3 addresses. Owner, Morrison Holdings of. Sole member and manager, Isabel Morrison. Silence. Charlotte grabbed the guest house deed. Impossible. We've lived here 3 years. You've lived as Ms. Morrison's guests. She purchased this in 2021 for $2.1 million cash. Cash. David whispered. Richard laid out more. Main house deed. Purchased 5 years ago, $3.2 million. Carriage house 2 years ago, $1.5 million. Total, $6.8 million. All from Ms. Morrison's accounts. No mortgages. No co-owners. Dad went pale. But this is the family estate. This is Ms. Morrison's private investment. She's allowed family to occupy rent-free. Eric stood. Isabel doesn't have $7 million. She's a real estate agent. I'm a commercial developer, I corrected. I own Morrison Development Group. 18 properties, $47 million. My personal portfolio, 12 properties, $22 million. These 3 are part of that. You own a development company? Mom asked weakly. For 8 years. Since I was 25. Annual income, $1.2 million. Richard continued. Property tax records for 5 years. All paid by Isabel Morrison. Insurance policies. Renovation permits. New roof, $180,000. Kitchen renovation, $95,000. Carriage house structural work, $340,000. Total improvements, $1.8 million. All funded by Ms. Morrison. Charlotte scrolled her phone. County database. She's right. All 3 properties. Morrison Holdings LC. Manager, Isabel Morrison. Where would you get $8 million? Eric asked. Developing commercial properties since 25. First project netted $800,000. Completed 47 projects. Average profit, $400,000. Aunt Marie looked stunned. You've been a multimillionaire? Yes. You told us you sold condos, Dad said. You assumed. I said commercial real estate development. You heard real estate, and decided I was entry-level. Richard pulled another document. Ms. Morrison documented financial support to family. $50,000 loan to Charlotte and David for their wedding, never repaid. $75,000 to Eric for his failed restaurant, never repaid. $30,000 to her parents for tax debt, never repaid. You said those were investments, Charlotte protested. I said loans with repayment schedules. You decided they were gifts. So legally, David said, we have no ownership? None, Richard confirmed. Your guests who attempted to illegally transfer property. We weren't stealing, Mom said. We thought these were family properties. You can't organize properties you don't own. You drafted transfers. Planned county filings. That's attempted fraud. Dad sat heavily. This is a misunderstanding. You thought wrong. Like you thought I was unsuccessful. Like you thought you could redistribute my $9.2 million portfolio without my input. $9.2 million? Eric whispered. Current market value. I've gained $2.4 million equity plus $1.8 million renovations. Total profit, $4.2 million in 5 years. Richard checked his watch. Ms. Morrison, I have options. 1. Eviction notices for all 3 properties. 2. Rental agreements at market rate. 3. Continued rent-free occupancy with signed acknowledgement you're sole owner. Eviction. Charlotte gasped. You'd evict family? You tried to steal my properties. You invited 30 people to witness dividing my portfolio. We didn't know. You didn't ask. You assumed. Drafted documents, scheduled filings without confirming authority. Cousin Jennifer spoke. Should we leave? Yes. Everyone not living here should leave. Extended family scattered, embarrassed. I looked at my parents, Charlotte, David, and Eric. Here's what happens. You destroy those transfer documents. You sign acknowledgements you have no ownership rights. And you issue a statement to the family explaining you attempted to distribute properties you never owned. A statement. Dad asked. That would humiliate us. You tried to steal my properties on New Year's Eve in front of 30 witnesses. You're already humiliated. Revelation. Charlotte cried. Where do we go? We've built our life here. Not my problem. You assumed you owned a $2.3 million house. You were wrong. Eric's face reddened. You let us believe these were family properties. You deceived us. I offered free housing. You transformed it into assumed ownership. Different things. Mom tried another approach. We raised you. Doesn't that earn consideration? 18 years of childhood doesn't earn you 3 properties worth $9.2 million. What do you want? Dad asked, defeated. Rent. Acknowledgement. Signed documents stating I own these properties, always have, and you have no legal claim. Public correction to your estate division announcement. And repayment of every loan. $155,000 total. $155,000? Eric exploded. We don't have that. Then make payment arrangements. Richard prepared loan documentation with reasonable terms. Richard pulled out papers. Standard repayment contracts. 5-year terms. 6% interest. Monthly payments structured to your stated incomes. Charlotte looked at numbers and went pale. These payments are impossible. They're proportional to what you borrowed. If you'd like to discuss bankruptcy, I can refer you. Bankruptcy. David looked sick. Alternative is legal action for unpaid loans plus attempted property fraud. Court costs, legal fees, potential criminal charges. Mom sat crying. Dad stared at deeds. I can't believe you're doing this, Charlotte said. On New Year's Eve. Destroying our family. You destroyed it planning to take my properties. I'm protecting what's mine. Richard handed me documents. Which option? I looked at my family. Their shock, humiliation, sudden realization they'd been living in properties they never owned. Option 3. Continued occupancy contingent on signed acknowledgements and loan repayment. If they refuse, option 1, eviction. Generous, Richard noted. One chance. Sign everything tonight or 30 days to vacate. Resolution. My family signed. No choice. Alternative was immediate homelessness. Charlotte signed the guest house acknowledgement. Eric signed the carriage house. Parents signed the main house. All signed loan repayment agreements. 5 years, $155,000 plus interest. Richard witnessed everything, notarized, filed with county. The Morrison family estate plan died New Year's Eve, replaced by legal proof I owned everything. At midnight, fireworks over Boston. My family sat surrounded by signed confessions they'd tried to steal my properties. Happy New Year, I said and left. I drove to my penthouse, opened $300 champagne, toasted to property rights. The story spread through family. The estate division disaster. The daughter who owned everything. The fraud that exploded at New Year's. Charlotte and David became obsessive about payments, terrified of eviction. Eric struggled with monthly obligations. My parents stopped hosting. Too humiliating in a house everyone knew they didn't own. Aunt Marie called. I should have questioned when you weren't included. I'm sorry. You were the only one who asked Dad to verify. That's more than others did. 3 months later, Eric emailed, can't make payments. Need to move. I replied, 30 days notice required. He moved to a rental 40 minutes away. The carriage house became luxury Airbnb, generating $8,000 monthly. Charlotte made payments but our relationship died. Stopped calling. Too much resentment living in my property. 6 months after New Year's, Dad had a health scare. Mom texted, "Your father needs family support. Can we move past this?" I replied, "I'm supporting you by not evicting you from the $4.8 million house you tried to steal. That's my support." Silence. A year passed. Compound appreciated to $10.1 million. My portfolio hit $25 million. I purchased 2 more commercial properties. Richard sent loan payment records. Charlotte and David, current. Parents, current. Total repaid, $38,000 of $155,000. Eric sent final text, "You destroyed this family over money. Hope you're happy." I looked at county records. 12 properties. $25 million. All in my name. I texted back, "I didn't destroy this family over money. I protected my property from theft. There's a difference." Blocked his number. Sometimes I drove past the compound at night. Lights in the main house. Lights in the guest house where Charlotte made monthly payments. They'd assumed the estate was theirs to divide. Assumed I was too small, too unsuccessful, too insignificant to own something valuable. The land registry told different. So did property deeds. So did $6.8 million in wire transfers and $1.8 million in renovations. My father worked 40 years in corporate finance. My mother was a CPA. They should have known to verify ownership before drafting transfers. They didn't. That assumption, that illegal, fraudulent assumption, cost them their New Year's celebration, their family reputation, their relationship with their daughter. The county records didn't lie. Their assumptions did. And in the end, those assumptions were far more expensive than the estate itself. The legal documentation Richard filed became part of public record. Anyone searching county property databases could see the ownership history. My purchases, my renovations, my sole proprietorship of everything my family had tried to claim. Local real estate attorneys began using the case as a teaching example. The Morrison New Year's Eve incident, they called it. A cautionary tale about verifying ownership before attempting property transfers. Dad's former colleagues heard the story. His reputation in Boston's financial circles never recovered. Gerald Morrison, the CFO who tried to give away his daughter's properties without checking who owned them. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 40 years analyzing financial documents, undone by failing to read a single property deed. Charlotte's friend circle changed. The women she'd hosted at her guest house stopped calling when they learned she'd never owned it. The embarrassment of planning renovations, discussing property values, hosting garden parties, all in someone else's house, was too much. Mom's book club dissolved. Too many awkward questions about what really happened at the estate. She'd spent 2 years decorating the main house, choosing furniture, planning landscaping. All of it in my property. All of it based on a fantasy of ownership. The Carriage House Airbnb received 5-star reviews. Stunning historic property, beautifully renovated, amazing owner who clearly loves real estate. Those reviews appeared on every booking platform, a permanent reminder that I owned it, I renovated it, I profited from it. Eric's restaurant failure, the one I'd loaned him $75,000 for, became relevant again. Food critics who'd panned his establishment wrote follow-up pieces. Remember Eric Morrison's failed bistro? Turns out his sister funded it. She's now a multi-millionaire developer. He's in a rental apartment making loan payments. The contrast was stark. Permanent. Public. My New Year's Eve could have been about celebrating family and new beginnings. Instead, it became about property deeds, legal documentation, and the hard truth that assumptions don't create ownership. They'd learned that lesson expensively. I'd learned it was worth protecting what I'd built, even from family. Especially from family.